Hey, English 106. Stephanie Letty here, coming at you with tips for effective academic reading. The first thing I want to talk about is making sure that you can find your 8 articles quickly and efficiently. No one wants to get bogged down in reading and reading for hours and hours. That is a truly scary thought. So, here's some tips to help you avoid doing so as you're trying to find and identify the 8 articles you'd like to choose. First, identify and look for keywords in the title of the article as well as in any of the short descriptions that you can find on the OneSearch site. Seeing if an article matches your keywords should pretty quickly help you either eliminate it or decide to read a little bit further. If you're not sure based on the keywords or you'd like to read further to make sure it really matches up, a few more tips. First, see if you can read the intro, thesis, and conclusion. Why? Well, authors typically state their most important points in the intro and thesis and repeat them in the conclusion. So, as readers, read those 3 things and you'll probably have a pretty good idea of whether the article will be helpful to you. If you're still not sure, you've read those things, we don't really know, you can use the techniques of skimming and scanning. And yes, if you combine them, you get skinning. That's not what we're doing in here. Skimming and scanning. When you skim a piece, you're moving your eyes across the page very quickly, and you're basically reading to catch the general overall gist of what the author's talking about. So often, for a lot of people, skimming means reading the first sentence and the last sentence of a paragraph and sort of rapidly skipping over the stuff in between. Scanning is similar. It lets us cover a lot of material very quickly, but with scanning, you move your eyes over the text very quickly to look for specific keywords and key phrases. And if you see one of those keywords or key phrases, then you slow down and read the next passage a little more intensively to find out if this is what you're looking for. So, those techniques of reading the intro, conclusion, and thesis, or scanning and skimming, should be able to help you identify pretty quickly whether it's an article you want to read and you think it's really great, or whether it's an article that's like, oh, so boring, not relative to my topic. Once you've identified your 8 articles, then it's time to put on our thinking cap and see what we think about these articles and how they'll be helpful. And if you're really lucky, your thinking cap is fancy like mine. So the first thing that we want to do is keep in mind you are reading with a purpose. Your goal is to read for ways of thinking about the topic that will be applicable to your lit review. We're not trying to memorize and regurgitate information here, we're reading critically. So, before you read, have in mind why you're reading. What is the question you want to answer? And what do you want to achieve as you read? What would you like to learn, or what information are you looking for in the article? So you really want to focus on that research question to help you with the task at hand. As you begin reading, also be mindful of the author's purpose, content, and structure. So, for example, if you are looking for articles about using technology in the classroom and what teachers can do to use technology in the classroom, articles whose purpose is to educate teachers about ways to bring digital learning into the classroom would be very helpful to you. You also want to keep in mind the author's content, or the thesis and the evidence they use. And also think about their structure. Think how the paper is organized, which will help you move through that article more quickly once you can identify its organizational structure. Now that we have our purpose in mind, we've got the content and structure down, and we're ready to tackle the article, read through and keep track of what you're reading. So you may want to make notes in the margins. Think about underlining or highlighting key passages, especially when you think those passages are going to be helpful. It's like having built-in quotes when you come to later in the writing process, right? You can just say, oh, what did I underline? What did I highlight? And there you go. Potential for a built-in quote to use as evidence. Some people like to use post-it notes. You can stick a little tab or a little post-it note on pages that have really helpful information. I sometimes also like to use post-it notes to help me in summarizing. So once I'm done with an article, I take a post-it note, slap down on the cover, write a quick summary, maybe 3 sentences or so and remind myself what that article's about. So then when I'm going back to my writing process a week later, I can pretty quickly refresh myself on the article, why it's going to be helpful, what it's about. As you're reading, you may also want to look for navigation aids or things the author's built in that will help you as the reader move through that text more quickly. So transition words are a great navigation aid. You can look for sequences if the author lays things out very logically, like first, next, finally, lastly, and that will help you very much in those sorts of things. If you have a hard time focusing or it's really, really hard, oh my gosh, it's been 5 seconds, oh, I better check my phone, it probably will help you to break reading up into segments. Since we're reading articles, that's kind of already broken things up into a more manageable chunk for us. We're trying to get through, maybe 10 or 15 pages, not a full book. So, set a limit for yourself. Promise yourself, okay, I will get through this article and I will focus and read this article. And then I get my little break. I can get my phone, update my Twitter, check my Facebook, take 30 seconds to do all that. For purposes of our power read on Friday, you'll also have some exercises to do. So as you get done with each article, you'll have a built-in break as you fill out the exercise designed to help you retain the most effective information. And finally, oh my goodness, what if you've read an article, you think it's going to be so helpful, and it just doesn't make sense? Instead of re-entering the danger zone, never fear. Help is here. Some things you can do if the article just isn't making sense. It's possible that you're having a hard time because the author's used a lot of words that you're just not familiar with. If that's the case, take a break, pull out your dictionary.com app or pull it up on your computer and look up some of those words so that way you actually know what in the heck the author is talking about. If looking up some of the words you're not familiar with doesn't help, you could also look for keywords. So identifying those key concepts and phrases that are helpful to you and seeing if you can pick those out to move through the article. You also may want to try and explain the article to someone else, because if you can talk through that article and explain it to someone else, a lot of the time you'll find out, I actually do get it after all. Finally, if all else fails, just try and reread the article. Sometimes it takes our brains 2 times to get through something. And by the second time we've kind of gone through those concepts, they're starting to click, and they finally made sense. So, to sum it all up, remember, you're reading for ways of thinking about the subject matter, keeping your research question in mind, and taking notes as you read so that you can be an active reader. If you can successfully do all of these things, then, go you. You've just practiced good, effective academic reading, and you're ready to tackle the lit review and pass with flying colors. Over and out.